Hi, this is Bonnie from Mom by Example, and I'm here to talk about raising responsible children by helping them learn how to do chores. When my four sons were 8, 6, 4, and 2 years old, and I had a newborn daughter, I decided that I should really start teaching my children how to do chores. I needed some help around the house. But what ended up happening was something much more important than having help around the house. My children started to gain a confidence in what they could do and how they could learn new skills and how they were an important part of the family and how what they did for the family made a difference, that they were an important part. Didn't matter their birth order, didn't matter their age, that they could learn things to help the family, and they became more responsible. And as that feeling of responsibility grew, that they could handle it, I gave them more responsibility. So it was a win-win situation. They gained the confidence. I got some help around the house. They learned to enjoy learning new things. They didn't look at chores that came something that was separate from family life. Working around the house, working together was just part of being a family, and everyone was needed. I did discover some interesting things. One was that I started to buy books because I didn't know how to have a chore system. I didn't know how to have children help me. And I found from reading the books that there are basically two kinds of people on the earth, and that's the way we're created. You are either a messy or a cleanie. I didn't coin those terms. They're written in many, many books. And I realized I was a messy. Not only did I not alphabetize my spices as cleanies do, I couldn't always find my spices. And so understanding that there was a word for me, that I would often start a project, go to the next project, go to the next project, and by the time I was finished, none of the projects were finished and the house was a mess. So understanding why I was the way I was helped me train my children, because some of them I could tell were cleanies and some were messies, but we could all learn together. So an important thing that came a result of teaching my children how to do chores was I learned how to organize and declutter my entire home, as did the children. And so I'm going to be talking about that probably next week or the week after. That might be a really long series. But I discovered that reading books written by cleanies about how to have my children learn to do chores didn't work for me. I was not a cleanie. My mind didn't work the way theirs did. So I had to glean material from where I could that worked in my life, from my perspective and the ages of my children. Some of what I'm going to share with you today might not work for you. Your children might be different ages. You might have more. You might have less children than I did. And so it might not work. But the point is, there is a system that will work for you. And the fact that we can increase our children's sense of confidence and help them become more responsible and even courageous comes from helping them learn to do chores. So I'd love for you to have some kind of system. What I did do and what I did learn from the cleanies books that I read was that I should go around my house with a clipboard and list every job that needed to be done. Now, every room needed to be vacuumed, so I didn't write vacuuming under every room. I just put vacuum. Every room needed to be dusted, so I put dust. The bathroom sinks needed to be clean. The kitchen sink needed to be clean. The ceiling fans needed to be clean. Every job in every room, I just put on a piece of notebook paper on this clipboard. And when I was finished, I divided up the jobs. Some jobs should be done daily. Sweeping the kitchen floor in our house should be done daily. Other jobs like cleaning out the refrigerator doesn't have to be done daily. So I made up a daily list and then a once a week list and then a seasonal. And I randomly picked the first week of March and the first week of September to do the seasonal jobs, like flipping mattresses on the beds, vacuuming under the beds, moving out the stove and refrigerator in the kitchen and really scrubbing, cleaning the oven. And of course, if there's something spilled in between, I would do that. But cleaning all the ceiling fans and light fixtures on the ceiling, that was a seasonal job that was done the first week of March and the first week of September. And I would write them down. I wrote them on a piece of notebook paper, and I put them in my filing system, which I came up with. The weekly jobs were when the children and I would dust, vacuum, and mop the entire house. And it became such a routine that every Thursday around 10 o'clock, I decided to homeschool my children at that point for entirely different reasons. It wasn't to have them around to help me clean, but every Thursday at 10 o'clock, we would just clean the entire house from top to bottom. It took about an hour and a half. The 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and I'd be with the 2-year-old. And we did a good job, and it became easier and easier every week because it just became routine. So I had seasonal jobs, and then I had weekly jobs, and then I had daily jobs. And it's the daily jobs I want to talk to you about today. I took the list of daily jobs like helping me set the table, doing laundry, cleaning up toys, things like that. I divided them up into 4 basic areas because I had 4 boys I was working with. One was kitchen duty. These 4 areas, these 4 jobs would last a whole week, and then we would rotate. So every month, each boy had one of the 4 types of jobs. The first was kitchen, and they had to help me set the table, plan the meals, make the meals, and clean up the table. That was probably the hardest job that took the most time. And they did that all week. And when the 2-year-old was not a help at all in anything, but they started to learn, and it was fun to be with them one-on-one. And by the time they were 3, 4, 5, 6, they got to really be a help. So that was the kitchen duty. That was every day, 3 meals a day. The next one was called cleanup. And 3 times a day, before lunch, before supper, and before bedtime, they would make sure that the house was clean. Now, they didn't clean up their siblings' toys, and they were not allowed to tell their siblings what to do. It just didn't work for us. But they would monitor, not tattletale. I'll talk about that in the next couple days. They would just be in charge. Let's say someone brought the mail in and placed it in the wrong place. They'd pick up the mail and put it on my desk. Or if there were empty milk cartons to go outside to recycling, they would take care of that. They would take care of things that were sort of in between. Maybe a rug got crumpled or pillows were on the floor from the sofa. No need to ask who did it, just that cleanup person put them back. And the other children knew to clean up before we sat down for lunch, before we sat down for supper, and before bedtime. So that was the cleanup person. The third was laundry, and when our children turned 8 years old, they did their own laundry, but we always had others that were under 8. So laundry person would help me do the laundry, which was done daily, 6 days a week. We would put it in the washer. Every child had their own hamper. They were responsible for putting it in the hamper. Then we would carry it to the washer or dryer, either hang it outside or put it in the dryer when it was finished in the washer. Then we would fold it, and the appropriate child would put it away. So that was the laundry person. And the 4th category may not fit your house at all, but we live on a farm, and we have animals that had to be tended to several times a day. And we had outside rugs, like mats, and then we had inside rugs that we'd wipe our feet on to make sure they got really clean before coming in the house. Well, those rugs would get dirty. And the mud room, the door that we came through into the house was through the mud room, and that floor would become dirty. So the 4th job was called rugs, and those people that child did the rugs, swept the rugs, and swept the floor every day, at least twice a day, including the patio, the entranceway into the house. So they had the easiest job, but then what I did was I took those 4 categories and I assigned each of the categories a job to do on Thursday when we cleaned the whole house. And the person that did rugs, although they had an easier job on every day just cleaning up the rugs, every Thursday they had to vacuum the whole house. Every room that needed to be vacuumed that had a rug, they vacuumed. The cleanup person dusted the whole house. The kitchen person helped me in the kitchen, and because they had the hardest job really, doing the kitchen work every day, they had the easiest job on Thursdays, which was sweeping and mopping the kitchen, wiping off all the counters, wiping the appliances. Usually was the shortest job. And then the 4th person was in charge of laundry each day. So on Thursdays, they were in charge of the bathrooms, which were easier jobs. We had 1.5 baths. They had to wash out the sinks, clean the toilets, and just mop the bathroom floor. So every day they had their daily jobs, and then Thursday they had it took us about an hour and a half to do the entire house. And the more often they did it, the more often we learned that there was a routine. There is a book that we got to really like, and I know it's going to be backwards in the screen, Don Aslett, Clean in a Minute. If you don't have any of Don Aslett's books, they are available in public libraries. They taught me how to clean. I didn't know that there were ways to clean. I didn't know you cleaned a bedroom going in a clockwise motion. I didn't know you cleaned from the ceiling down. And once we learned a system, it became fun. It didn't take quite as long. There were other books and materials that I used that I'll talk about tomorrow, and I'll also talk about age-appropriate chores for each category.